The thick purple fog rolled across the surface of Kepler 442b as the twin suns began to set. Through this alien mist, something massive moved between the twisted metal trees. Its footsteps made no sound, but the ground shook slightly with each step. Kang Wu pressed himself against the cold rock wall of the observation post. His hands shook as he held the recording device. Through the small window, he could see the creature that had haunted his nightmares for months. The Vorthak stood, 12 feet tall. Its black skin looked like living metal. 6 arms ended in claws that could cut through steel. Its head had no eyes that humans could see, but it could smell fear from miles away. This was the thing that had wiped out entire planets. This was the monster that made grown soldiers cry just hearing its name. But today, something was different. The Vorthak stopped just 50 feet from the human research station. It lifted its massive head and sniffed the air. Then it did something Wu had never seen before. It stepped backward. The galaxy's most feared killer was backing away from a small research base with only 12 humans inside. "Are you getting this?" whispered Dr. Park Mina through his earpiece. She was watching from the main building, safe behind thick walls. "Yes," Wu replied, barely breathing. It's leaving." The Vorthak turned around and walked away. It moved quickly, like it wanted to get away from the human base as fast as possible. This was the 3rd time this month. 2 hours later, Wu sat in the meeting room with the rest of the research team. The walls were covered with maps and pictures of local wildlife. Most of the pictures showed creatures that looked harmless compared to what they had just seen. "It doesn't make sense," said Dr. Park Mina, their station commander. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her voice was strong. "Vorthak don't run away from anything. They hunt everything that moves." Li Jun, their engineer, shook his head. "Maybe it wasn't hungry." "Vorthak are always hungry," Wu said. He had studied these creatures for 3 years. "They eat constantly. A single Vorthak can consume 50 pounds of meat every day. Then why is it avoiding us?" asked Hansol, who managed their computer systems. Wu pulled up a holographic display. It showed the area around their base. Red dots marked where they had seen Vorthak over the past month. "Look at this pattern," he said. "They come close to our base, but they never enter this circle." He drew a line around their building. "It's like there's an invisible wall keeping them out." Dr. Park Mina studied the display. "What's the radius?" "About 200 meters. Far enough that they can smell us, but they won't come closer." "Smell us?" Li Jun laughed. "Do we stink that bad?" Nobody else laughed. They all knew that Vorthak used smell to hunt. Their sense of smell was 1,000 times stronger than a human's. "There's something else," Wu said. He pulled up another file. "Last week, that Kalari refugee ship crashed in Sector 7, remember?" Everyone nodded. The Kalari were a peaceful alien species. They looked like large blue lizards and were fleeing from Vorthak attacks on their homeworld. "I went to check the crash site yesterday," Wu continued. "I found Kalari body parts scattered everywhere. The Vorthak had killed them all. But here's the strange part." He showed them photos from the crash site. There were human footprints near the ship. The rescue team from mining station Beta 7 had been there first. "So?" Park Mina asked. "The human footprints were right next to Kalari blood. The Vorthak killed the aliens but completely ignored the humans who had been there hours before." The room went quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. "You're saying they can tell the difference between human and alien scent?" Hansol asked. "I'm saying they choose not to hunt humans," Wu replied. The alarm started ringing at 3 a.m. Emergency. Lights flashed red throughout the base. Everyone rushed to the main control room. "What's happening?" Park Mina demanded. "Ship crash, Sector 12, reported Choi Bin, their security officer. "Big one. Looks like a cargo freighter." The display showed a smoking wreck about 5 miles from their base. The ship had broken into 3 pieces when it hit the ground. "Any survivors?" Park Mina asked. "Reading multiple life signs," Choi Bin said. "But there's a problem. Long-range sensors show Vorthak movement heading toward the crash site." "How many Vorthak?" "At least 6. maybe more. Park Mina made a quick decision. Prep the rescue vehicle. We can't let them kill the survivors. Commander, Wu said carefully, this might be our chance to test my theory. What theory? If I'm right about Vorthak avoiding humans, we should be safe approaching the crash site. Park Mina stared at him. And if you're wrong, we'll all be dead in 10 minutes. The alternative is letting innocent people die. She thought for a moment. Fine. But we go in full armor and heavy weapons. If your theory is wrong, we fight our way out. The rescue vehicle moved slowly through the dark landscape. Its lights cut through the purple fog as they approached the crash site. Wu sat in the front passenger seat watching the scanner for Vorthak movement. There, he said, pointing at the screen. 3 heat signatures. Big ones. Vorthak? Asked Li Jun, who was driving. Has to be. They reached the crash site 15 minutes later. The freighter was a mess of twisted metal and sparking electronics. Bodies lay scattered around the wreckage. Some were human, others were different alien species. Survivors over here, called Choi Bin. He had found 3 people hiding in a piece of the ship's hull. Wu ran over to help. 2 of the survivors were human crew members. The third was a tall, thin alien with green skin, probably a Zentari trader. Thank the stars, gasped one of the humans, a woman with short black hair. We thought we were going to die out here. Are you injured? Park Mina asked. Some cuts and bruises, but we're okay, replied the other human survivor, a young man with a bandaged arm. The Zentari alien was shaking with fear. The hunters, it whispered in broken universal language. They came after the crash. They killed everyone else. They're still out there. As if summoned by these words, a low growling sound echoed through the wreckage. Everyone froze. Vorthak, Choi Bin whispered, raising his weapon. The growling got louder. Heavy footsteps approached from 3 different directions. Stay together, Park Mina ordered. Back to the vehicle slowly. They began moving toward their rescue vehicle. The human survivors stayed close to the rescue team. The Zentari alien walked between them, still shaking. That's when Wu saw it. A massive Vorthak emerged from behind a piece of wreckage. It was the largest one he had ever seen. Its claws gleamed in the light from their vehicle. It looked directly at their group. Then it did something impossible. The Vorthak's head moved back and forth like it was sniffing. Its attention focused on the Zentari alien. It took a step forward. Nobody move, Wu whispered. The Vorthak moved closer. It was now only 20 feet away. Everyone could hear its heavy breathing. But its eyes, if they could be called eyes, stayed focused on the alien, not the humans. Suddenly the Zentari panicked. It broke away from the group and ran toward the wreckage. The Vorthak moved like lightning. In 3 quick steps, it caught the fleeing alien. There was a brief scream, then silence. The rescue team stood perfectly still. The Vorthak was now only 10 feet away from them. It had alien blood on its claws. It looked right at the human survivors. Wu held his breath. This was the moment that would prove or destroy his theory. The Vorthak sniffed the air again. It looked at Li Jun, who had a bandage on his arm and was bleeding slightly. For a long moment, human and monster stared at each other. Then the Vorthak made a sound that might have been disgust. It turned around and walked away, disappearing into the purple fog. The humans stood in shocked silence for several minutes. The red lights flashed across the command center of the Vextai warship. Li Jun asked finally. Commander Thekval stood was already pulling out his recording device, checking the battle reports he had captured the floating screens around him. It happened. His purple skin glowed. And now we need to figure out why. He read the galaxy's most feared predator had just chosen to spare them. His aide but the question that would haunt Wu's dreams was losses on our side. What made humans so different that even monsters were afraid to tactical display? Tiny red dots showed where human ships had been. Now they were just empty space and floating metal pieces. The humans had tried to fight with their primitive weapons again. Their bullets and missiles could not even scratch Vextai armor. How many human ships this time? Thekval asked. 47 destroyed. 3 escaped. Let them run, Thekval said with a sound like laughing. They will tell others how hopeless it is to fight us. The Vextai had been winning this war for 8 months now. Every battle was the same story. The humans would attack with their old kinetic weapons, guns that shot metal bullets and rockets filled with explosives. The Vextai would respond with plasma cannons and quantum disruptors. The human weapons would bounce off Vextai shields, like raindrops. Then the aliens would cut through human ships like hot knives through butter. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Kang sat in his command chair aboard the human defense station orbiting Earth. His face was tired and gray. Dark circles under his eyes showed he had not slept well in weeks. The holographic display in front of him showed the same terrible news as always. "Sir, we just lost contact with New Sol Colony," Lieutenant Yoon reported from her station. Her voice was quiet and sad. Kang closed his eyes for a moment. New Sol had been home to 3 million people. Now it was probably just rocks and empty space like so many other human worlds. "Any survivors?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. 17 escape pods made it out. The colony defense fleet was completely destroyed. Kang looked at the star map on the main screen. Red markers showed all the human colonies that had fallen to the Vextai Empire. There were so many red marks now. Only a few blue dots remained, the last free human worlds. "How long until they reach Earth?" Kang asked. Yoon checked her computer. "At their current speed, maybe 6 months. Maybe less if they don't stop to destroy the mining stations." In the research labs deep inside the station, Engineer Kim worked on upgrading their weapons. She had been trying for months to make human guns more powerful. Her team tested new bullets, stronger explosives, faster missiles. Nothing worked against Vextai technology. "The energy difference is too big," she explained to her assistant. "Their shields can absorb anything we shoot at them. It's like trying to break a brick wall with paper balls." Kim picked up a piece of Vextai armor they had recovered from a crashed alien ship. It was smooth and purple, made from some metal that human science could not identify. She hit it with a hammer as hard as she could. The hammer bounced off without leaving even a small scratch. "Their personal armor is just as strong as their ship hulls," she said. "Even if we could get close enough for hand-to-hand fighting, our knives and swords would be useless." Across the station, Colonel Park was meeting with the remaining fleet commanders. The room was quiet and dark. Everyone looked defeated. "Gentlemen, ladies," Park began, "I won't lie to you. We are losing this war badly. Our weapons cannot hurt them. Their weapons destroy our ships easily. We have lost 70% of our colonies." One of the commanders, Admiral Lee, spoke up. "What about the new plasma weapons the scientists are working on?" Park shook his head. "Still years away from being ready. Even then, they will probably just make stronger shields." "So what do we do?" asked General Shin. "We keep fighting," Park said. "We evacuate who we can. We make them pay for every world they take. And we hope our scientists find something, anything, that can help." But hope was hard to find these days. On the Vextai flagship, Admiral Zethmore read intelligence reports about human technology. The reports made him feel even more confident about victory. "Humans still use chemical explosives," he said to his staff. "They fire solid metal projectiles from tubes. Their ships burn fossil fuels mixed with oxygen. It is like fighting children with toys." His tactical advisor, a tall Vextai with silver markings, nodded agreement. "Our scouts report they are trying to copy our plasma technology. But their understanding is too basic. They will need decades to catch up." "They don't have decades," Zethmore said. "Order the fleet to advance. I want Earth conquered before the cold season ends." The Vextai had good reason to feel confident. They had defeated 12 different alien species in the past century. All of them had used energy weapons, plasma guns, laser cannons, particle beams. The Vextai had always won by having stronger shields and more powerful energy weapons. Humans were different, but the Vextai saw this as making them weaker, not stronger. The aliens laughed at human primitive technology. They could not understand why any species would still use kinetic weapons when energy weapons existed. Back on Earth's defense station, Captain Kang received another report. The mining world of New Busan had gone silent. Then New Daegu. Then New Incheon. One by one, human worlds were disappearing from the communication network. "Sir," Lieutenant Yoon said quietly, "at this rate we'll lose everything before winter." Kang stared at the tactical display. The red markers kept growing. Soon there would be no blue dots left. In her laboratory, Engineer Kim threw her tools across the room in frustration. Every test failed. Every new weapon design was useless against Vextai shields. She sat down heavily in her chair and put her head in her hands. "There has to be something," she whispered to herself. "Some weakness, some way to fight them." But she could not see it. None of them could see it. The Vextai Empire had fought many wars. They had perfected the art of space combat using energy weapons and quantum shields. Their technology was thousands of years more advanced than anything humans had. Their ships were faster, stronger, and nearly indestructible. The war seemed hopeless for humanity. Every battle proved that human technology was too weak and too old to matter. The Vextai were winning so easily that they had already started planning how to divide up human territory among themselves. What none of them realized was that sometimes being too advanced could be a weakness. The Vextai had spent so long fighting with energy weapons that they had forgotten about other ways to fight. They had grown so used to winning easily that they stopped looking for surprises, and humans were very good at surprises. The red lights kept flashing on both sides. Victory lights for the Vextai, warning lights for the humans. But deep in the human archives, old knowledge waited to be remembered. Ancient wisdom that the Vextai had never encountered. The war was about to change in ways that nobody expected. Dr. Lee stood in front of the Earth Defense Council with shaking hands. She had been working for 3 days straight without sleep. Her white lab coat was stained with coffee and grease from the alien technology she had been studying. The council members looked at her with tired eyes, waiting for another report of failure. "I think I found something," Dr. Lee said quietly. General Park leaned forward in his chair. "What kind of something?" Dr. Lee activated the holographic display. A piece of Vextai armor appeared in the air, spinning slowly. Red lines showed where human weapons had hit it during tests. None of the lines went deep into the metal. "We've been thinking about this wrong," she said. "We keep trying to make our energy weapons stronger. But look at this." The display changed to show the alien's personal shield generator. It glowed with blue energy around a Vextai soldier. "Their shields work by absorbing energy and spreading it out," Dr. Lee explained. "Plasma, lasers, particle beams. The shield takes the energy and pushes it away. That's why our weapons don't work." "We know this already," said Admiral Kim, sounding frustrated. "Tell us something new." "The shields only work on energy weapons," Dr. Lee said. "I tested them with pure kinetic force, things that just hit without any energy beam. The shields don't stop them." The room became very quiet. Colonel O raised his hand. "What do you mean by kinetic force?" "Things that just move fast and hit hard, like a rock or a hammer. But it has to be the right speed and the right angle. Too fast and the shield treats it like an energy weapon. Too slow and their armor stops it." Dr. Lee pressed a button. The display showed test results with numbers and graphs. "There's a sweet spot," she continued. "If we can hit them with something moving at exactly the right speed, their shields won't work and their armor can be broken." General Park scratched his beard. "So we need to build better kinetic weapons? Railguns? Coil guns?" "Maybe, but there's another problem. These tests were done on their ship armor and shields. I haven't been able to test their personal equipment, the stuff they wear when they board our ships." Captain O stood up. He was a quiet man who usually didn't speak in big meetings. "I can get you that information." Everyone turned to look at him. Captain O had led more rescue missions than anyone else. He had seen Vextai soldiers up close during boarding actions. "I'll take a team to observe their boarding tactics," O said. "We need to see how they fight when they're inside our ships." 3 days later, Captain O and his team hid inside the wreckage of a human cargo ship. They waited in the cold and dark while Vextai soldiers searched the ship for survivors. O watched through a small camera as the aliens moved through the corridors. The Vextai soldiers wore purple armor that covered their whole bodies. Blue energy shields flickered around them like soap bubbles. They carried long plasma rifles that could melt through steel doors. When they moved, they stayed far apart from each other. They're not used to close fighting, O whispered into his radio. Look how they hold their weapons. Those plasma rifles are too long for tight spaces. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Sun, watched from another hiding spot. Their shields are smaller when they're in the ship. Maybe they use less power to save energy. O nodded. The Vextai soldiers were confident and slow. They did not expect any resistance. When they found a locked door, they stood back and melted it with their plasma guns. When they heard a noise, they pointed their weapons and waited. They've never had to fight in close spaces, O realized, against enemies who can fight back. After the aliens left, O's team returned to Earth with video recordings and energy readings. Dr. Lee studied the data for hours. Their personal shields are weaker than their ship shields, she announced. And look at this. When they bend down or move quickly, the shields flicker. They're not stable during physical movement. General Park studied the recordings. So if we could get close enough, we might be able to hurt them, Dr. Lee finished. But we'd have to fight them hand-to-hand, up close, with weapons that move at just the right speed. The room fell silent again. Hand-to-hand combat in space was considered suicide. No human army had trained for close fighting in over 200 years. Modern warfare was all about shooting from far away with powerful weapons. Master Sergeant Choi was working in the military archives when he got the call. He was an old soldier who took care of historical records and training materials that nobody used anymore. Most people forgot he existed. Sergeant Choi, General Park's voice came through the phone. I need you to find something for me. What kind of something, sir? Information about close combat, fighting with knives, swords, clubs, old stuff. Really old stuff. Choi was quiet for a moment. Sir, we haven't used those kinds of weapons for 300 years. Why do you need... Just find it, Sergeant. Everything you can. Training manuals, historical records, weapon designs. Anything about fighting up close without guns. Choi spent the next day digging through dusty computer files and old books. He found training videos from centuries ago showing soldiers learning sword fighting. He found books about ancient wars where men fought with steel blades. He found weapon designs that had not been used since humans first went to space. When he brought the information to General Park, the general looked through it with wide eyes. My great-grandfather used to tell stories about his grandfather, Park said quietly. A man who fought with swords in the old days. I thought they were just stories. Dr. Lee looked at the ancient weapon designs. These are just pieces of metal shaped into cutting tools, but if we made them from modern materials. You think this could work? Park asked. The math says yes. A blade moving at the right speed, made from the right materials, could cut through their armor. Their shields wouldn't stop it because it's not an energy weapon. Park turned to Master Sergeant Choi. How long would it take to train soldiers to use these weapons? Choi looked at the old training manuals. In the past, it took years to make a good swordsman, but we don't have years. How long do we have? Park asked Dr. Lee. Maybe 2 months before they reach Earth. Then we train for 2 months. Park decided. Get me volunteers, people crazy enough to fight aliens with swords. The first volunteer was Corporal Han. He was young and fast, with quick reflexes from playing virtual reality games. He had been in 3 space battles and survived all of them. Sir, Han said when he volunteered, I'll try anything if it means we can hurt them back. The second volunteer was Sergeant Bay. She was older and more experienced. She had been a martial arts instructor before joining the military. I've been waiting my whole career for a chance to really fight, she said. Not just shooting from far away, real fighting. Soon they had 20 volunteers. All of them knew it was probably a suicide mission. All of them wanted to try anyway. Dr. Lee worked with the weapon designers to create the first prototype swords. They used the strongest metals humans had ever made. Carbon nanotube steel that was harder than diamond but lighter than aluminum. The blades were sharp enough to cut through tank armor. Meanwhile, Master Sergeant Choi taught the volunteers how to hold the swords, how to move, how to strike. The soldiers were clumsy at first. They were used to pointing guns and pulling triggers, not swinging heavy blades. Forget everything you know about modern fighting, Choi told them. This is older than spaceships, older than computers, but it works. The training was hard and dangerous. Corporal Han cut himself twice learning how to grip the sword properly. Sergeant Bay bruised her ribs practicing combat roles. But slowly they began to learn. General Park watched the training sessions with mixed feelings. Part of him thought it was insane, sending soldiers with medieval weapons against aliens with advanced technology. But another part of him remembered the old stories his great-grandfather used to tell. Maybe, he said to himself. Sometimes, the old ways are the best ways. The volunteers trained for 12 hours every day. They learned to move quietly in their spacesuits. They learned to fight in zero gravity. They learned to work together as a team with their ancient weapons, and, slowly, impossibly, they began to believe it might actually work. Sergeant Moon floated inside the dark escape pod holding his breath. He had been cramped in the tiny space for 4 hours, waiting. His sword was strapped to his side and his spacesuit felt heavy and uncomfortable. Through the small window, he could see stars and floating rocks. The 24 escape pods drifted through the asteroid belt like pieces of junk from a destroyed ship. They looked damaged and empty. Inside each pod, a human soldier waited with an ancient weapon that could change the war. Target approaching, Captain Young's voice whispered through the radio. Everyone stay quiet. Moon looked through his window and saw it, a massive Vextai supply ship moving slowly between the asteroids. The alien vessel was 3 times bigger than any human ship, covered in purple armor and glowing with blue energy. It looked impossible to defeat. On the bridge of the Vextai ship, Commander Velthar noticed the floating pods on his scanner. His 3 eyes studied the readings with boredom. More human debris from some battle. The humans were so weak that their ships broke apart easily. Sir, his navigation officer reported, 24 escape pods detected. They appear to be damaged. Any life signs? Velthar asked. Negative. They look like empty shells. Velthar considered the pods. Sometimes they contained useful materials or information about human technology. It might be worth collecting them. Bring them aboard, he ordered. The science team can study them later. The Vextai ship's cargo bay opened like a giant mouth. Tractor beams reached out and pulled the escape pods inside one by one. The aliens had no idea they were bringing their enemies directly into their ship. Inside his pod, Sergeant Moon felt the pull of the tractor beam. His heart pounded as his pod was dragged into the alien ship. This was the most dangerous part of the plan. If the Vextai discovered the pods were not empty, the mission would end before it started. The cargo bay was enormous and filled with strange alien equipment. Purple machines hummed with energy. Boxes of supplies were stacked against the walls. 20 Vextai workers moved around the bay, sorting through cargo. The escape pods were placed in neat rows on the metal floor. The alien workers looked at them briefly but were not interested. Empty human pods were common space junk. Nothing to worry about. Captain Young waited inside his pod for 10 minutes after the cargo bay doors closed. He needed to make sure all the aliens were busy with other work. Then he quietly opened his pod's hatch. The first thing Young noticed was how big everything was. The cargo bay was built for creatures larger than humans. The ceiling was high above his head, and the machines were sized for the tall Vextai aliens. Young climbed out of his pod carefully, making no sound. He drew his sword, the first human weapon to be drawn in anger aboard an alien ship in over 200 years. The blade caught the blue light from the alien machines and seemed to glow. One by one, the other human soldiers emerged from their pods. They moved like ghosts in their dark spacesuits, swords in hand. 24 humans stood in the heart of an enemy ship, ready to fight. A Vextai worker walked around a stack of boxes and saw them. The alien was tall and purple, with 4 arms and 3 eyes. It wore no armor, just work clothes. For a moment, the alien and the humans stared at each other in surprise. The Vextai opened its mouth to shout a warning. Private Wu moved faster than thought itself. His sword cut through the air in a silver arc. The alien fell without making a sound, green blood spreading across the metal floor. First blood to us, Wu said quietly. Alarms began to sound throughout. The ship, The dead alien had been found. Captain Jung knew they had maybe 5 minutes before armed Vextai soldiers arrived. "You know the plan," Jung said to his team. "Split into groups. Take the engine room, the bridge, and the weapons control. Move fast, hit hard, and remember, their shields won't stop our blades." The humans ran through the corridors of the alien ship. Their boots made no sound on the metal floors. They had trained for this, moving quickly through enemy territory with weapons their enemies had never seen. Sergeant Bay led the first group toward the engine room. They found 2 Vextai guards blocking their path. The aliens wore full combat, armor, and carried plasma rifles. Blue energy shields flickered around them like soap bubbles. "Humans," one of the guards shouted in broken English. "You surrender now." The guards raised their plasma weapons, confident that their shields would protect them from any human attack. They had fought humans many times before. It was always the same. Humans fired energy weapons that bounced off Vextai shields, then the aliens killed them easily. Sergeant Bay charged straight at the first guard. The alien fired his plasma rifle. The bright energy beam went wide. These weapons were made for long-range fighting, not close combat in narrow corridors. Bay's sword hit the alien's energy shield. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the blade passed through the shield like it was not there. The Vextai guard looked down in shock as steel cut deep into his armor. "Impossible," the alien gasped. The second guard tried to retreat, but Corporal Han was already behind him. Han's sword found the gap between the alien's helmet and chest armor. More green blood flowed on the metal floor. "Their shields are useless," Bay reported over the radio. "The swords work exactly like Dr. Lee said they would." All over the ship, the same scene played out. Vextai soldiers who had never lost a fight suddenly found their technology failing them. Energy shields that had protected them for years could not stop simple steel blades. Private Wu led a group toward the weapons control room. They met 6 Vextai Marines in a wide corridor. The aliens took defensive positions behind metal barriers and aimed their plasma rifles. "Stay back, human scum," the lead Marine shouted. "We will burn you to ashes." The Marines fired together. Bright plasma beams lit up the corridor. But the humans were no longer where the aliens expected them to be. The sword fighters had learned to move differently, rolling, dodging, using the walls and ceiling in zero gravity. Wu bounced off the corridor wall and flew over the barrier like a bird. His sword came down on the first Marine before the alien could turn around. The Marine's shield flickered and died as steel cut through alien flesh. The other humans followed Wu's example. They moved in ways the Vextai had never seen. 3-dimensional fighting that used every surface in the corridor. The aliens' long plasma rifles were useless in such close combat. In 5 minutes, all 6 Marines were dead. The humans had only minor burns from plasma that missed its target. Captain Young reached the ship's bridge with his team. The door was thick and locked, but their swords could cut through anything. They carved a hole in the metal door and climbed through. Commander Velthar stood in the center of the bridge, surrounded by his command crew. He held a small energy pistol but looked confused and afraid. This was not how battles were supposed to go. "How are you here?" Velthar demanded. "Your pods were empty. Our scanners showed no life signs." "Your scanners were wrong," Jung said simply. Jung walked toward the commander. Velthar fired his energy pistol. The beam hit Jung's chest, armor but did not penetrate. Human armor was designed differently than Vextai shields. It spread out energy attacks instead of trying to absorb them. Jung's sword found Velthar's throat. The commander of the mighty Vextai supply ship died with a look of complete surprise on his face. "Bridge secured," Jung reported over the radio. Similar reports came from all over the ship. "Engine room secured. Weapons control secured. All resistance eliminated." In less than 30 minutes, 24 humans with swords had captured a Vextai warship. Not one human soldier had been seriously injured. Over 200 aliens were dead. The humans stood in the ship's command center, breathing hard and covered in green alien blood. They looked at each other with amazement. The impossible plan had worked. "Get on the radio," Jung ordered. "Tell Earth Command we have a victory to report." Back on Earth, General Park received the message with disbelief, then joy. then hope for the first time in months. They did it, he announced to the Earth Defense Council. The swords work. We have a way to fight back. The war was about to change completely. Security footage for the 10th time. The images showed impossible things. Human soldiers cutting through Vextai shields with simple metal blades. His 3 eyes could not believe what they were seeing. This recording must be fake, he said to his intelligence officer. Humans cannot penetrate our shields with primitive weapons. Sir, we have confirmed reports from 12 different ships, the officer replied nervously. Human boarding parties are using some kind of blade weapons. Our shields do not stop them. Zethmore slammed his 4 fists on the command table. In 800 years of space warfare, no enemy had ever found a weakness in Vextai's shield technology. The shields absorbed energy from any weapon, lasers, plasma, particle beams, everything. How could simple metal defeat such advanced science? Get me the Science Council, he ordered. I want to know how this is possible. On Earth, the weapon forges worked day and night. Master Do had been a sword maker before the war, creating decorative blades for collectors. Now he was the most important person on the planet, teaching others how to forge weapons for humanity's survival. Each sword must be perfect, he told the new workers. One weak spot and the blade will break in battle. Our soldiers' lives depend on these weapons. The forges glowed red hot as they produced hundreds of swords every day. Each blade was made from the same advanced materials, carbon nanotube steel stronger than anything used in ancient times. But the shape and balance came from techniques that were thousands of years old. Dr. Jiang worked with Master Du to improve the design. They made the swords lighter and sharper. They added special grips for fighting in spacesuits. They tested each blade until it could cut through the thickest alien armor. It's strange, Dr. Jiang said as she watched a new sword being forged. We're using our most advanced science to make our most primitive weapons. Maybe that's why they work, Master Do replied. The aliens expect us to fight like them. They never thought we would go backward to go forward. Colonel Yo was designing new spaceships based on the sword strategy. The old human ships were built for long-range fighting with energy weapons. But sword fighting required getting very close to enemy ships. We need fast ships, Yo explained to the engineers. Ships that can get our boarding parties close enough to reach enemy vessels. We'll take heavy damage getting there, but once we're inside their ships, we can win. The new ship designs were smaller and faster than anything humans had built before. They had thick armor in front, but almost no weapons. All their space was used for engines and small attack boats that could carry sword fighters. These ships are basically flying rams, one engineer said. They're designed to get close and deliver our people, then probably get destroyed. Better to lose ships than lose planets, Yo replied. The training program expanded rapidly. Thousands of soldiers volunteered to learn sword fighting. Master Sergeant Choi could not train them all himself, so he taught the best students to become instructors. Corporal Han, now promoted to sergeant, taught new recruits how to fight in zero gravity. Sergeant Bei showed them how to move quietly through enemy ships. Private Wu, who had become famous for getting the first kill, taught advanced sword techniques. Remember, Wu told his students, the sword is not just a weapon, it's part of your body. Think of it as a very sharp arm that can reach farther than your real arm. Fleet Commander No planned the first major offensive using the new tactics. Intelligence reports showed a Vextai battle group moving toward the mining colonies. 3 heavy warships with over 1,000 alien soldiers. This will be the real test, No told his captains. We've only fought supply ships so far. This time, we're going against their best warriors. The human attack fleet was strange to look at. 50 small, fast ships that looked more like missiles than warships. Each one carried 20 sword fighters and enough fuel for a one-way trip. The plan was simple. Ram through the alien defenses, board their ships, and fight with steel. We'll lose most of our ships getting close, No admitted. But if even 10 ships reach their targets, we can capture the entire battle group. The battle began in the asteroid belt near the mining world of New Gangwon. The Vextai ships waited in formation, their energy weapons charged and ready. They expected another typical human attack, long-range missile strikes that would bounce off their shields. Instead, 50 human ships accelerated straight toward them at maximum speed. "They're not firing," the Vextai fleet commander observed. "Why are they not firing their weapons?" The first wave of human ships took terrible damage. Vexta plasma cannons melted through their hulls. Quantum disruptors tore them apart. 20 ships were destroyed before they got close enough to launch their boarding pods, but 30 ships survived long enough to release their cargo. 600 sword fighters and small attack boats heading straight for the alien vessels. The Vextai tried to shoot down the small boats, but there were too many of them. The boats were fast and used the destroyed human ships as cover. Most of them reached the alien hulls and attached like metal parasites. Cutting charges blew holes in the Vextai armor. Human soldiers poured through the breaches with swords in hand. The aliens inside the ships were not ready for this kind of fighting. Lieutenant Kim led her squad through the corridors of a Vextai heavy cruiser. They met resistance at every turn. Alien Marines with plasma rifles and personal shields. But the outcome was always the same. The shields failed, the plasma rifles were too slow for close combat, and steel cut through alien flesh. "It's like they never learned how to really fight," Kim reported as her team secured another section. "They depend too much on their technology." The largest Vextai ship, a battle cruiser with 500 crew members, put up the strongest resistance. The alien captain ordered his soldiers to fight room by room, using furniture and equipment as barriers. Captain Park led the assault on the ship's engineering section. The Vextai engineers had barricaded themselves behind heavy machinery and were firing plasma weapons through gaps in their defense. "They're learning," Park observed. "Using cover, fighting from defensive positions, but it won't help them." The human sword fighters moved like water around the alien defenses. They climbed on walls and ceilings, attacked from unexpected angles, and used their smaller size to get into spaces where the tall aliens could not follow. The battle for the engineering section lasted 2 hours. When it was over, the humans controlled the ship's power systems. Without power, the alien weapons stopped working and their shields failed. By the end of the day, all 3 Vextai warships had been captured. Over 800 alien soldiers were dead. The humans had lost 30 ships but gained 3 of the most powerful vessels in the enemy fleet. News of the victory spread through both human and alien space. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets for the first time since the war began. On Vextai worlds, military leaders held emergency meetings to figure out how primitive weapons had defeated their advanced technology. Admiral Zethmore stood in his command ship, reading reports from the battle. His advisors argued about new strategies and better weapons, but Zethmore understood something that his officers did not. "We have been fighting the same way for 800 years, he said quietly. "Energy weapons, quantum shields, long-range battles. We forgot that there are other ways to fight." "Sir?" his tactical officer asked. "The humans did not try to match our technology," Zethmore explained. "They went around it. They found the one thing our shields cannot stop: simple kinetic force, applied at close range. But surely we can adapt our defenses." "Can we?" Zethmore asked. "Our entire military is built around energy weapons and shield technology. Our ships, our tactics, our training. Everything assumes that battles are fought from a distance with energy beams." He looked at the tactical display showing human ships moving toward another Vextai fleet. These ships were different from the ones at the beginning of the war. They were smaller, faster, and designed for one purpose: getting close enough to board enemy vessels. "They are teaching us something we forgot," Zethmore said. "Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best solutions." 3 months later, the war had completely changed. Human forces were advancing on multiple fronts, using their sword tactics to capture Vextai ships and bases. The aliens tried to adapt by developing new weapons and shields, but they were always one step behind human innovation. Fleet Admiral Ko stood on the bridge of a captured Vextai battleship, now painted with human colors and armed with human soldiers. Through the window he could see Earth in the distance, blue and beautiful and free. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 3 more Vextai colonies." Ko nodded. The tide had turned completely. The empire that had seemed invincible was collapsing as human sword fighters captured their ships and bases one by one. Send a message to all Vextai forces, Ko ordered. Any ship that surrenders will be treated with honor. Any ship that continues to fight will face our steel.